Good afternoon from Chicago, Illinois, and welcome to Tourist Railroad Connections, More Important Than Ever, Episode 9. My name is Michael Kuehl. I'm the president of Dynamic Ticket Solutions. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Miller, station manager for the North Shore Scenic Railroad. As the pandemic continues to paralyze the world, and most importantly, everyone here, the tourist railroad industry, more than ever, we need meaningful connections. None of us have the right answers to how to navigate these uncharted waters. No one has ever dreamed of the scenarios we now face. We're all working in the dark, using our gut instincts to make decisions and try and keep our organizations afloat. Today, Josh and I, along with our panelists, will be furthering the conversation we started 9+ weeks ago. We do not have all the answers, and we're not claiming to be experts. We are facilitating a dialogue to share ideas and to help establish or reestablish connections. We've made available recordings of past webinars. To access them, simply go to www.dynamicticketsolutions.com and click on Webinars in the top navigation. We would encourage you to participate in our discussion. On your screen, you should have a dialog box entitled Go to Webinar Control Panel. And within that box, there should be two sections. If you look at the bottom section, you should notice a gray bar labeled Questions, and just below that, another white box with the words Type Questions Here. Simply type in your questions and either hit return or send, and we'll do our best to work your questions or comments into our conversation. Oops. So, week 9, Josh.
Yes, how exciting.
9 times.
Very nice. 9 times.
And we've been, today's webinar, we've shifted around, made it in the evening, because we realize life happens and people have railroads to now run or worry about opening. And Josh and I both really enjoy doing this, but we're struggling to figure out where the balance is to be effective and be a resource to you, but not be burdensome at the same time, because you can't make the webinar. And we do see value in doing them live because people have the opportunity then to submit questions versus just watching a recorded video. So, we're looking and we're trying to find a balance there and what might be the best frequency to have these webinars and what time of day.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. I mean, it's a matter of, should we do weekly? Should we do monthly? What are people looking for? Our specific audience here of the people we have had on these webinars, and some of them have been with us from the beginning, and thank you so much for sticking with us. These are the managers and the people who run our industry, the tourist railroad industry. And it's been really fun to have these discussions as they relate to COVID-19, but we're starting to discover that we're able to share all kinds of great ideas together, as we will here in just a couple minutes, that really benefit everybody. So the question is now that we're going back to work and we have to run our railroads, how often should we get together as managers of tourist railroads?
We want to, I guess, encourage you to just, if you could use the feedback box there, or submit your questions and let us know what might work for you, and any suggestions you have, we welcome them, and we'll see what we can do. So Josh, do you want to take things over?
You bet. Thank you so much, Mike, and thanks everybody again for being here today. I'm looking forward to our talk. You can see some of our panelists here that we have with us. Coming up here, we're going to talk with Rick Burchett from the Chehalis-Centralia Railroad in Washington. We've got Tim Andrews, who's the president and CEO of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. And we have John Bush from the Cumbres and Toltec. And of course, me, Josh, in Duluth, Minnesota, and the North Shore Scenic Railroad. We're really spanning the entire continent here with representation from the entire country of various tourist railroads. So the 4 or 5 of us here are going to have a great conversation talking specifically about railroads are up and running. The 3 panelists we have here with us today have trains running on their track and passengers behind them. And so how does that relate to the current climate of the world with COVID-19 and having gone from a shutdown mode to now having tourists on board and running excursion trains? So that is our main topic for today. And just a reminder that question box, which is perhaps on the right side of your screen or the left side of your screen, please use that. Go ahead and chime in. We want you to participate with us in the conversation. Submit questions, maybe give your suggestion as to how often these webinars should be held to get together. And the other thing that Mike also has made available all of our previous episodes. So you can go back and watch our previous 8 episodes on dynamicticketsolutions.com. And all of those webinars are available. I think they're hosted on YouTube, but they're on the website, so it's an easy place to get to them. Dynamic Ticket Solutions, and some great conversations that we have had from various guests throughout the past 8 weeks. We took last week off, so technically 9-10 weeks or whatever it may be, but we've all weathered the storm of a shutdown, and we're all getting ready to open our businesses again. And some of those businesses are open again. So we're going to talk to our panelists here and talk a little bit about how that is going. First, I want to get a little bit of introduction, but biography, a little background from each of you guys. If you can just tell me a little bit about yourself. Let's start with Tim Andrews from the President and CEO, Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good to be here, and from the far southeast, where it's nice and hot and humid. It's something I've gotten used to after moving down here 44 years ago. I've been involved with TVRM for that long now. I've been president for 14 years, and I got involved when I was in college, and I've always found ways to come back here. Of course, now I live here, and been busy and active with TVRM and other parts of our operations here in Chattanooga, our freight operations and other things as well. So
sure. Excellent. Well, glad to have you here. Let's turn now to John Bush from the Cumbres and Toltec. How's things out in Colorado there, John?
Thank you, Josh. Well, I'm the president and general manager for Cumbres and Toltec. I was born out here in Colorado. I grew up in Telluride and have been involved with the Cumbres and Toltec since about 1989. I did spend some time in Alaska with the White Pass, and also spent time in California with the Roaring Camp and Big Trees. I came back here in 2013. This year, of course, is our 50th anniversary of having been a tourist railroad, and the 140th anniversary of the railroad being built over Cumbres Pass. It is unfortunate, since we had a lot of pretty special stuff planned for this year. We kicked off with the Rotary Snowplow exhibition, and we did manage to get that in just before the COVID-19 thing happened and shut everybody down. We have reopened as of the 13th and are currently running out of Antonito. Of course, the Cumbres and Toltec operates in 2 states, Colorado and New Mexico. And so we have sort of 2 different jurisdictions that we have to satisfy. We have received authority to run out of Colorado, and New Mexico has been gracious enough to allow us to operate through New Mexico to the midpoint at Osier, which is also in Colorado, but we cannot originate any trains yet in New Mexico.
Can you cross the state border or state line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this railroad, of course, is almost as soon as you leave Antonito, Colorado, you're in New Mexico.
Right.
Almost as soon as you come in New Mexico, you're in Colorado. So it's kind of topsy-turvy that way. We are hoping to get permission to operate. The governor is having a news conference even as we speak. We suspect that we will not get authority today for 1st of July, but we are hoping we will get authority by mid-July.
Sure. Well, excellent. Well, welcome to the program. We're going to turn to Rick here out in Washington. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the operation, kind of your current status.
I've been with the railroad for 28 years now. I can't believe it.
Wow.
Mostly in operations. I've had various offices in the organization also, but now I'm just a board member, and it's so nice. We opened up last weekend, and it was very, very productive. We own 10 miles of track along the Chehalis River, so it's a very pretty ride. We don't run big trains like John and Tim, but we get by.
Sure, excellent. So, well, let me continue the conversation, Rick. How has business been since you opened up and started operating trains with passengers on them?
I'm sorry, would you say it again?
How has business been? Have passengers arrived? What are they, are people coming?
Yeah, our business for Father's Day weekend this year was up 20% in riders from 19. That doesn't make sense to me.
Wow.
We operated 2 dinner trains Father's Day weekend last year also. So our ridership per train was up 44% this year.
Wow.
We asked people to wear masks and self-distance, and they were pretty good about that. We have a pile of masks on the desk that they can take for free, and we've gotten some good donations because of it.
Interesting. Did you run additional runs of reduced capacity? I mean, I'm trying to put the correlation together with an increase in business if, if you had less capacity or however you worked that.
We're just running a 2-car train, and normally we could sell 140 tickets. We were limited to 50 for phase 2 in our state. On Friday night, the governor approved us for phase 3, so we went to 75, and we were running over 50 people on several of our trains, which is small for John and Tim, but that's good for us.
Sure. Excellent. Well, let's turn back to Tim there. Tell me a little bit about how your operations, guests coming, how business has been, the response so far.
We opened 4 weekends ago. This is our 4th weekend. We actually, the week started today, and we started out with just 2 days. We called it a soft opening. We weren't quite ready at Labor Day, although we could have opened under the state guidelines.
Memorial Day.
I'm sorry?
You mean Memorial Day?
Memorial Day. I said Labor Day. Sorry, I'm already planning ahead. Memorial Day, we could have been open. The state, we're not quite as bad as Georgia, which opened really early. We could have done things a few weeks later, but with all the changes we had to make in the depot, getting ready for one-way traffic and touchless fixtures in the restrooms and a remote area where you didn't come into the waiting room and cluster together. We now group everybody outside. Had to get all that ready to go. So we opened. So this is our 4th weekend. We did just a 2-day weekend. We're now currently running a 4-day week, Thursday through Sunday. And that includes steam on the weekends, diesel for the first 2 days. Capacity is about half of a car. If it's 50 seats, we're getting about 25, 26. We use the social distancing, of course. We have car hosts that make sure that the people are seated correctly. We request that they wear masks. We'll provide them. They don't have them. We also sell them in the gift shop. If you want a 4501 number plate on your gift shop or on your face mask, you can get one. And even the deli and the gift shop have been turned into kind of grab and go kind of things because the health department doesn't want to do, real serious food service and things that slow people down and bunch them up. So we've been, pleasantly surprised with a 4-day week. We normally would be open 7. We're probably running, if our normal train's 150 seats, we've added a car, and we're probably handling somewhere in the neighborhood of just about half of that, and we're pretty well patronized.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like things are going fairly well. Let's turn the conversation a little bit to things that you were preparing and how you've altered your business. You guys have touched a little bit about. It sounds like it's a masks requested, not a requirement for everybody. Is that right?
That was last week. Our governor has now mandated masks
for everybody on the train or at a business. Interesting.
Outside, yeah.
Sure.
Our model, Josh, is a little different. We're at the moment operating 4 days a week, only out of the Antonito end.
Right.
Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We will go now to a 6-day week model, also all out of Antonito till at least the middle of July. Our trip, of course, is an all-day trip, departing at 10, returning about 4:30. We do require masks of all the passengers. We are running 16-car trains with 3 open rider gons, and that allows us to accommodate 120 people. So we're limited to 10 people per car. We take everybody's temperature when they arrive. We mandate that they must wear a mask if they're going to ride, and they have to keep it on. The response has actually been quite good out of the passengers, and we in fact get a lot of people who are grateful that we are in fact taking that level of care. So that is all working pretty well. The social distancing thing obviously creates some real challenges as a 16-car train. For us, normally we'd be able to haul about 400 people on it. So at 120, we're down at about 25% capacity. On the other hand, it gives everybody an opportunity to see a nice long train winding its way through the wilderness. So
Absolutely, everybody's got a lot of space to stretch anyway.
they've got a lot of space, yeah.
Sure. Well, let me ask you about enforcement of some of these rules then. We're now talking about wearing masks and as a requirement, and then various social distancing aspects, limited space, and space in between people, and reduced capacities in cars. How has it been going in terms of an enforcement with guests? Are you constantly having to chase after people and, hey, put that mask back on, or whatever that may be, or have people been following along pretty well?
There's been very little need to reinforce it. There are a few people, and we've had to have the conductor. Of course, all the train crew wear masks and gloves the entire time, and it's a PR challenge to make sure that they understand the necessity of wearing the mask. But I think largely it's been well received. Of course, our customer base is largely what has been seen as the at-risk population out there: older people older than 50, older than 60, and so they are generally appreciative of the fact that we're taking the extra care. So all in all, it's gone pretty. There've been a couple of people who've been sort of recalcitrant, and we do meet them when they first come on the property and explain to them that it's simply a requirement and they have to do it. So I would say largely that's been pretty successful. Our crew works pretty hard at making sure that they, quote, sell it, to the passengers.
Safer for everybody, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we also ask them whether they've got any COVID-19 symptoms before they board the train. And I think our passengers are encouraged by the fact that they know that everybody else that is on the train has essentially reported as being symptom-free, within the proper temperature range, and is wearing the mask.
Excellent, that's good info. Tim, thoughts on enforcements?
Well, we're kind of the same situation as far as our employees are all masked. We're sometimes sure whether we're not being robbed by train robbers or actually that's the conductor, but because some of them wear the bandana type masks and things, so it's kind of fun. But typically when they come up to this, what we call the advanced ticket office, we'll ask them, there's 3 questions that they read, they answer, and obviously if they answer no to any of them, we suggest that they come back another time. We've actually not had that happen yet. But obviously we can deny them access if they answer yes to one of those questions or whatever. So the rules in Tennessee and with the local health department, I guess, are a little different outside. If you're socially distant, you don't have to wear your mask. It's only when you get inside the building or on the train. And because we're running our short train only, we're not running our long trains into Georgia or we're on the Hiawassee. People are on the train a short enough period of time, they don't seem to object. They know that when they get to the other end and they get back outside and spread out, they can actually, again, take them off and then put them on before they board the train again. So we've had a little pushback at the ticket office, but when we provide one and they see everybody's wearing them and they see we're doing this for everybody, we get that same positive response eventually that, hey, we're doing this for everybody. And if you want us to be open, you want us to be able to do this, then everybody's got to comply, because nothing will shut us down faster than a positive case within the employees or somebody who's been here with the contact tracing being found to be a TBRM. That would obviously cause us to close for a period of time again. So I think once that's explained to even the most difficult passenger, that pretty well takes care of the problem.
Good to know. Good to know. Rick, anything you want to add about enforcement of, masks and things like that? It sounds like in your state that helps a little bit to have that already be a requirement.
Yeah, we have, we put tape down on the deck for people to space out. That sounds good. And we just have had nothing but positive about the masks. We haven't had anybody not want to do it. We've gotten donations because we have them available. The thing that John said caught me, I had to go pull up a report from yesterday. Only 25% of our riders last weekend were what we call seniors, 62 and over, and 23 were children. So we're not having the double risk people as much as others, as John did.
Sure. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to turn it over here to Mike for viewer questions. I just want to remind everybody who is here watching, our panelists here distinguished panelists from all over the country. We also have representation of nearly 50 different railroads across the country as well in terms of the attendees who are here. And that is you, the managers who run the tourist railroads in our country. And we're discussing COVID-19 and getting up and running our railroads again. Mike, questions from the audience?
Yeah, two. One, we got a comment from Alan Ryder from the Southwest Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia. They say that they require masks for everyone. About 25% of the visitors refuse to do so and leave. They do have masks available, and if we were to make them optional, most of our volunteers would not participate due to their own health concerns. So just thought I'd put that in there. David Cauldron from the Richmond Railroad Museum asks, can you speak specifically about how the distancing seating works? Groups together, skipped rows, etc.
That's a very good question. I do want to ask that because, a lot of things have been thrown around in meetings here as our Duluth Railroad is preparing to open, as many of you are. Do we tape off a row? Do we tape off a row? But then what happens if there's a group of 5 or 6 and they want to sit together? And are they going to mess up our whole little system or whatever? Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, let me speak to that a little bit, Josh. The way we do it at Cumbres and Toltec, of course, everybody has an assigned seat. And so as we book the seats, we book family groups together. Now, we are limited to 10 people per car at the moment, even if 10 people if there was a family group of 12, 2 of them would have to be in a different car at the moment. So it's fairly restrictive at the moment. We board each car one at a time, and we board it from the rear of the car, seating the people at the front of the car first, so that as we load each car, we keep the social distancing maximized and the opportunity for, a cross contact to a minimum. That's actually gone pretty well. We do allow husbands and wives, obviously, to sit next to each other, although I think we've found that after being locked up for 3 months together, it's pretty easy to keep husbands and wives socially distant. But we do make sure then that the next non-related group is at least 6 feet away from any other non-related party.
Sure.
That's gone pretty well. One of the things we do say as we board our train is that on the Cumbres and Toltec, the good guys wear masks. So that kind of softens the blow a little bit, and I think helps people be a little more accepting of the fact that they need to do it.
Sure, interesting. I want to turn that question over to Rick, actually, because you're representing a 2-car train, so you have some sort of organized plan for when people get on. How do you have it organized? It sounds like Cumbres and Toltec is ultra organized as far as boarding goes. Tell us what you guys have.
We are absolutely the opposite. We've got an open car and an enclosed car, and you get in the vestibule in the middle, and you can go either direction. We really are not seating people. We let them self-distance. And when we start our dinner trains, of course, we'll be doing like John does, everybody's assigned seats, and we'll load the furthest from the door first. But for our 2-car train, it's just open seating, and people are doing it. They're self-distancing. We have groups of 20 that are together, and we have groups of 2 that are away from them.
Interesting. Tim, anything you want to add about?
Well, because we are letting people get tickets at the gate, so to speak. I know some places have gone to strictly, buy your tickets in advance. We have to sort of do it on the fly. And because we're taking a 4-car train, 2 of the cars basically are groups of 4, and the other 2 cars are for groups of 2. And so we sort of assign seats as they go, and that goes directly to the train crew, and they know where to put people. They wear a colored wristband. Each car has a color code. That's where they gather on the platform. We're using we have a single boarding ramp that can be used for people in wheelchairs and things. We use that as a single point of entry so that no one has to touch a handrail or a door or anything else. So they go up the ramp, and then they're taken to the farthest car and then work their way back with the car host making sure that they seat. And we have little signs on the seats we don't want them to sit in. And we can adjust those a little bit as we go to always keep that 6-foot distance within the car. And so we sometimes can do a few more passengers because of larger groups all being together and those kinds of things.
So rather than like taping off, you have a little sign that says like, keep this seat open or something?
Yeah, we actually saw that. I saw that at the hospital with my wife at a doctor's appointment, and I sent a picture to our graphic artist and said, here, can you produce these? And so she made them, and we laminated them. And so we can kind of play Tetris with every train. We've spread out the train departures so we have time to both clean the train, do sanitizing and those kinds of things between trains. And we can also reassign the seats that we're using or not using on each train at that point. So we're running 4 trains a day instead of our usual 5.
I think I want to see those little signs.
Yeah, I can send you a picture of those.
Sure, for sure. Questions from the audience here, Mike?
Yeah, Alan Wishengrad from the Whippany Railroad Museum asked Tim, what are the 3 questions that you're asking your riders?
First of all, we asked whether anybody, either that person or anybody in their party, has been in contact with anybody in the last 14 days who's been a positive COVID patient or has been found to be positive. We asked whether they have a cough, shortness of breath, runny nose. That's the second question. And then we asked whether anybody in that group has a fever at that time. We do not take temperatures. That was a kind of a go around with the local health department, but they said, really, restaurants aren't required. You're not required. Don't do it unless somebody asks specifically. And then we have the no touch thermometers available if somebody says, well, you better check. But those are the 3 questions.
And you're including that at the check-in point. So as people are checking in, getting their tickets or whatever that may be?
Yes, we do that. And again, we're not doing that at the depot. So we actually have a queue line out at the edge of the parking lot before you come on the property now. Used to be you go inside and you'd stand in line at the ticket office and do your check-in. But now we've got people where they can spread out in the parking lot. They can still wait by their car if they need to, or whatever it takes. They come up at the last minute and can get checked in at that point.
Interesting. I want to talk a little bit about boarding procedure then, as it relates to that. They've now checked in. You kind of got them pre-screened, so everybody who's here in the crowd at the platform, however they may line up or just hang out. Now what do you do? Traditionally you give a boarding call or something, and the conductors just start collecting tickets or whatever it may be. I'm going to start with Rick here. As to how you open the door and begin, or do you just are you boarding earlier? Tell me some things that you've been doing.
Well, first off, we've limited the number of people in our depot because it's considerably smaller than Tim's, I'll tell you. But we have a queue line along the edge of the deck that's roped off and markers on the deck. So people are kind of wandering around. We have a large deck. They're pretty much self-distancing, but when we go to board, then they go down this line and we keep them apart as they get on.
I see. Gotcha. Now in Antonito, I know you have a huge parking lot there right next to the depot. Tell me a little bit about how that's going.
What we do, Josh, is we greet them as they come up toward the depot. All of the stuff is done outdoors under the canopy. We greet them, we get their groups together, we hand them the day's menu. Remember, the other thing included in a Cumbres and Toltec ticket is a full hot lunch at Osier. So we give them the menu so they'll know what their choices are going to be at Osier, and that includes on the backside a list of the symptoms that they'll be asked about when they get up there. Then when the entire party is together, they go up, get their temperature check, answer the COVID questions. We get their names down. They go and pick up the tickets. Then they go up to their cars, and each car is boarded individually, and the conductor or an attendant calls them up, essentially, you know, Smith party at 2. And so we get them on first and to the front of the car, and then Jones party at 2, and they're the next one, so that they line up. It actually goes pretty quickly. It was a little challenging the first couple of days, but it's been pretty well dialed in now.
Where
Premium cars have their own attendants, and then we've got additional personnel plus the conductors and brakemen to help get them look.
Where were you calling people from, though? Where are they queued up? They're standing in the parking lot?
No, they're lining up kind of mostly in a line that is either parallel to their car,
Oh, I see.
to the train car, or at right angles to the train car up there. And then we start boarding about 15 minutes before. And they're actually all pretty good about socially spacing even before they get on the train. There are some markings on the pavement to show 6-foot distances.
I see. For our viewers, if you have not been on the Cumbres and Toltec, first make a plan to do that. And second, in Antonito, you have a really great setup for what you're speaking about. I mean, basically your train track circles around a parking lot. So you have a fairly good setup, I can imagine, for doing this.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
You can turn to Mike here for a question from the audience.
Sure. Randy Gustafson from Stone Consulting is asking comments on restroom cleaning and gift shops. It's kind of a loaded 2-part question.
Sure, that is a very good question, though. So now we're talking about restrooms and gift shops. Let's talk about that separately with the depots, and then also restrooms on the train, which I know is always a challenge too, and very tight quarters. Let's see. Let's start with Tim there, as it relates to your station and people using restrooms and gift shops.
Well, a couple things. The comment that Rick made about our depot being so much bigger, we took all those big heavy benches out, which the folks in the facilities group really love because they weigh about 900 pounds a piece. So there's only a couple in there in the building anyway. So most people gather outside. The general consensus is there's less chance of catching this if you're not in close quarters and those kinds of things. So people gather outside, and then we queue them on the platform before they get on the train. Restrooms, we basically went in and converted all of our restrooms to no-touch fixtures and things before we reopened. We have a on-staff person who is a janitorial person who also will go on the train and do cleaning between trains, and then also every 30 minutes we go through the depot and clean frequently touched surfaces where people can make contact with doorknobs or handles or those kinds of things where it's just impossible to make them no touch. Everything's one-way traffic. If you've been at TBRM, the hallway where the restrooms are, you could go either way. No, you come out of the restroom, you go always to the right. You may have to circle around the building 2 or 3 times before you get into everything you want to see or do, but we encourage this one-way traffic all the way around. The gift shop, we've opened up, it's a grab-and-go arrangement where we've reduced the number of things that you can pick through or stand in front of and decide whether you want to buy or not, and everything's purchased in the deli. So if you're going to go on, we also get you to buy a Coke and a hot dog at the same time. But it eliminates the gathering and grouping of people where they are trying to decide what to do. We have markings on the floor. We have, wait here signs. We have hand sanitizers all over the place where people can, pump a couple pumps of hand sanitizer on their hands before they move on to the next thing, and those kinds of things. On the train, because the train is so short, going just over to East Chattanooga and back, we actually don't have the restrooms open. If there's a true emergency, we'll deal with it when you get to East Chattanooga. Again, there are restrooms available there. They're cleaned on a regular basis as well.
Interesting. So it sounds like you really spend a lot of time planning things out. Rick, John, either of you want to chime in about your gift shops and how you're relating those things?
At Antonito, we limit the number of people who are allowed in the depot where the gift shop is, based on the square footage of the depot. The restrooms, both restrooms, open to the outdoors, not in from the depot.
Sure.
They get cleaned. Typically, our customers show up about 8:30, quarter to 9, till just about 10 o'clock. So we've essentially got them on the property for perhaps as much as an hour and a half. We've got a janitorial staff that goes in and cleans the restrooms at least 2 or 3 times during that time. And then we have janitorial staff that rides on the train and cycles through the train. There are hand sanitizers on each car when people do move from car to car. Of course, we do allow people to go from car to car once it's rolling to get to the open car so they can spend a little time standing outside in the fresh air. So we are going through janitorial staff, wiping down doorknobs and faucet handles and that sort of stuff on a semi-continuous basis. Again, remember the difference for us compared to what Tim or Rick are doing is that we've got people from 10 in the morning to about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Sure.
So it's regular cleaning going on the whole time.
Sure. Rick, anything you want to add to restrooms on the train?
Yeah, we did modify our gift shop and ticket agent area to one-way traffic, and we have a big plexiglass thing in between the ticket agent and the purchaser. We have our restroom is a different building, so which opens to the outside. So we have a janitor that keeps that clean, and then the onboard train staff of conductor and brakeman. We have an RV toilet on the train, so it's no touch option there, but the train crew still keeps that area wiped down.
Excellent. Interesting. I think one takeaway I have from talking with all of you is that clearly there's been lots of discussion and planning put into reopening. Clearly, you all attended a few meetings, perhaps by Zoom or Microsoft Word, or there's the go-to meeting and things like that. Planning all of this out meticulously to be prepared to responsibly open up your businesses. In all of the discussions and planning, what kinds of things did you plan for that perhaps was something that you don't have to worry about? When you had a meeting, this was on the list and we were going to do this thing and we were all prepared, we opened up and we were going to enforce this one thing, and then as it turns out, this component of our COVID-19 plan was either not necessary or was taken care of, or we spent a lot of time for nothing. Is there any one thing that stands out to you? Perhaps nothing.
No, well, if anything, you may overplan a little bit. We obviously, listened to the webinar that was done on the Heritage Rail standards that came out. We kind of looked at those and what would we adapt to fit our specific needs, because every state has their own rules. And, we weren't quite the wild, wild west here in Tennessee. Georgia, took that, for us, but they weren't as tight as people are in some of the other states. So we made choices to do things probably more than you would find elsewhere. A lot of other attractions in Chattanooga, other than trains, haven't even reopened yet. And so we had to sort of talk to the Rock Cities and Ruby Falls and those people who were open and find out, what were they seeing and what were the reactions that they were getting. We talked about not letting people get drinks out of the cooler in the deli, and the health department said, but think of people going to a convenience store. They do that all day long, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And
exactly, yeah.
Don't do it unless you want to. It's not necessary, and it's not looked at as one of the key areas where you were going to pass this along anyway. So, we probably, overdid some things, and we haven't had public pushback on them. So we're going to continue doing them until we see that there's just no need to.
Interesting. Rick or John, something that stood out that it was, extra?
We did it a little differently. We didn't overplan. We said, this is so fluid, we don't know what direction to go. And as things progressed, then we were able to act on that. But we did not go whole hog answering every question because there were just too many of the situations too fluid. So let's react to what we know. And it went pretty smoothly.
Excellent. Mike, a follow-up question?
I actually have one personally. Now that you're open, how has this affected your business? Are you continuing? Are you forced to continue now evaluating what you're doing to make tweaks in it, or is it okay? We're open now. Let's just continue on.
Are you talking in terms of COVID related policies and procedures?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So you've opened. You have policies and procedures in place for COVID-19. The question is what are you scaling things back, or let's go to John.
Well, of course, in New Mexico, we're still not given permission to open. You know, both Colorado and New Mexico have been pretty intent on the trying to keep people safe. So we have not had the same experience that went on in Texas, Arizona, California. We are here. We really do take to heart the old rule in the rule book: in case of doubt or uncertainty, the safe course will be taken. And so we are modeling that for both states to ensure that they recognize that we're taking the safe course. We spooled up to do it that way and have it's some struggle, but generated enough extra management manpower to pull that off. So at the moment, we're not backing off. Obviously, if we get an indication from the state that we're allowed to relax, then we probably would. But at this point, it's all going essentially according to plan. Now, unlike the rest of you guys, you know, we're dealing with a total of 120 people a day. You know, so it's not like there is a crush of people that are coming out hour after hour after hour. And of course, once we've got them boarded and the train's left, that part is done. And Antonito being what it is, once the train is departed, there's not a whole lot of other people hanging around the depot until the train returns.
Anything else on that, Mike?
That's good. Okay.
Sure.
A couple of questions when people are signing up. Alan Camp from the Branson Scenic Railway asked, what train capacities are being used? They're using 50%. How would their numbers comparing to last year as a percent? And he's reporting that Branson's 60 to 75%. So I guess that's planning your capacity.
That's a good question. I'm going to turn this one to Tim here. At least as we've looked at it here in Duluth, you know, all kinds of guidelines are out there, right? And the question that we've talked about in these webinars prior has been all along, you know, where does a railroad fit in? Are we a restaurant? Are we an attraction? Are we a building? Are we a store? What exactly are we? And are we transportation? Where exactly do those capacity limits fit in when you're talking about, you know, it's a 60-person coach, but you have 5 of them or 10 of them or 2 of them? Now what's the 50% capacity or 25% capacity? And so how have you looked at those capacity issues as it relates to your business? I'm going to start with Tim on this.
Sure. Well, there's a couple issues, and I think I said earlier, we've added a car to the train. You know, on a Saturday for Chattanooga, just the local train, you know, 600-person day is a good day, and holiday Saturdays maybe a little better than that. We're probably maybe half to 3/4 of that during the week. So that's close to the capacity we're operating right now, and we're filling those trains up. Saturday, we're coming up short. And so overall, it kind of balances out. You know, it's the rules in Tennessee, they didn't get quite so far into the, you know, maximum numbers of people that can be there at a single time, like you do for an event like a Thomas or Christmas or something like that. So we haven't bumped up against any of that yet. And it's something that we'll have to look at. What are the rules when we finally want to do an event or a larger group of people or something along those lines? So like I said, we're probably hurt a little bit on Saturdays for these kind of trains, but we're better than, we're at least equaling what we would do on the off days, so to speak, during the week and those kinds of things.
Excellent. Rick, do you want to touch on this a little bit about how you looked at capacity? It was a little bit easier to do the math, I guess, when you're looking at a 2-car train. But
Yeah, well, we were limited by our phase to less than 50 people, 49 to be exact, and then all of a sudden Friday night it went to 75. So, but for a 140-car train to be maxed out at 75, what we're doing is we have a higher percentage towards our capacity because our capacity is less. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think it does.
So, we've only run one weekend. We had more people than we did last year at the same weekend. So we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, it sounds like things are pretty solid. All right, so we have about 10-15 minutes left in our webinar series here today. You, the viewer, watching right now, sitting in your office or perhaps at your home office, we thank you for being with us today. We are talking with some very distinguished guests here. We got Rick Burchett from the Chehalis-Centralia Railroad. I was troubled with that one. Tim Andrews, President and CEO of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, and of course John Bush, President and GM of the Cumbres and Toltec in Colorado, New Mexico. I want to remind everybody that you can ask questions and participate via the question box there. We also like to hear from you, just statements. If you'd like to say, hi, we're up and running, just letting you know, and then participate there. I'd like to ask the question of operating your railroad. This actually was brought up to me by one of our staff members who was kind of leery about coming back, and the question was, are we operating for financial income at this point? Are we operating because of our mission statement? Are we operating for the greater good of our cities that rely on our establishments bringing people to their cities? I know that Antonito and Cumbres are very dependent cities on the railroad as a business, at least. And I think probably Tim and Rick can probably speak to this. I know in Duluth we have done the math and studies and surveys to know that we have a bit financial impact on just bringing people to the city. Most of our budgets are out the window, or what we originally planned for 2020, and obviously we're doing recalculating. At this point, from a business perspective, assuming that things kind of are the way they are, is it more of a labor of love at this point, or economically important to the business, or the city itself? Anybody want to speak to that? I'm going to start with John on this.
Well, of course, Cumbres and Toltec, we see ourselves as a social enterprise. You're absolutely right, Josh. The economy in Antonito and in Chama both are highly dependent on the railroad functioning, and it is a big challenge right now in Chama because while people are staying here and then riding over in their own cars to Antonito to take the train, things are limited because we are not operating out of Chama. Our primary goal, really is survival. If we can make it to the end of May of 2021, so we are constantly very attentive to the cash flow. We do not plan to make any money this year, and we plan to not lose more money than puts us in a position where we ran out of gas before we got to the gas station, and the gas station is at the end of May next year. There is some challenge in terms of staffing. Obviously, all of our people are paid. It's not a volunteer organization. The Friends are volunteer, but the operation of the railroad is paid staff. So we're trying to be very careful there. At the same time, because we are primary source of employment, we're trying to make sure that the people we have on, have a decent chance of making enough money to survive and stick with us.
Sure.
Our employees really are the core of the business, and without employees, you're kind of, the machinery will last, but if you don't have people that know how to deal with it, then you're in real trouble. So that's a major focus for us, is trying to hit the sweet spot there, and it's challenging.
For sure. Keeping the fuel going, and the coal and the fire and whatnot. Tim, operating your railroad?
I think probably, we have a freight subsidiary that thankfully is kept busy. People keep buying Little Debbie snack cakes, so we keep moving sugar for ADM and other people. But VW's back, and we're moving cars again and all that. But kind of like John, we have a staff that is full-time. We also have a lot of part-timers. They're on furlough or have been laid off right now, and we've not brought them back. So, we're trying to keep, as we say, the meter from not spinning backwards. If we can carry enough passengers to cover our fixed costs and in the labor side, then we think we're doing pretty well. We're going to keep trying to build on the business where it makes sense, as far as levels of business going forward in the fall and obviously Christmas time. But then we've got a dead period January till next April, just like everybody else does. How do we get over that? And, how do we get through that? So, keeping the employees going and keeping the business alive are kind of the two major things that are reasons for being open.
I see. Rick, what are you doing it for?
We are mostly volunteer. We don't have any full-time paid staff. Our train crew is paid when we're hauling passengers, and we have a ticket agent that works 2 days a week and a janitor that works 2 days a week. That's it. The rest is volunteer, and it's a lot of volunteer hours. But our economic impact on the local community is huge, and it's noticed. And we get money from the city for marketing through lodging taxes because we're such a huge impact. So it's made you a labor of love for those of us that are doing it, and a huge impact. And we are hoping to pay our bills this year. If you have a railroad, there's money going out the door every month, whether you run a train or not. There's fixed costs, and we're covering our fixed costs and our operating costs right now. So that's a good thing.
Good to hear. Questions from the audience, Mike?
Sure. Mark Ray from the Heritage Rail Alliance, president of the Heritage Rail Alliance, asks, what lessons learned from your first operations in the COVID-19 environment can you share with the industry?
Sure. Let's go down the list here. We'll start with Rick. What have you learned here after having started? Again, for those of us who are not at opening till next week, like me, I'm taking notes. What have you learned that we haven't thought of?
Boy, I can't think of anything. It's not been as bad as we feared.
Oh, that's good. Jim?
I'd say I agree with Rick. It's not as bad as we thought it would be. There is obviously a little bit of a pent-up demand, people wanting to get out and do things. And I mean, there was always the thought, even the first weekend, what if we throw open the doors and nobody shows up? That was kind of a fear, and that we were pleasantly surprised to find that it worked well. The other thing is, we've done virtually no advertising for the capacity that we have to operate, and so we're filling these seats without doing much more than putting stuff on Facebook and some of the social media kind of platforms. And so we're learning that more and more that you can cut the ties with a lot of that, especially when you're capacity constrained to begin with, and that's a big savings.
It's an interesting one. We're going to come back to advertising marketing in a second here, but John, what are your thoughts as far as things that you've learned that you didn't necessarily, maybe you didn't think of before you opened?
Well, our staff had thought it through pretty well. Our biggest challenge has been not knowing when we would be allowed to open. So we ended up, and I'm sure Mike can probably feel this pain. We have allowed booking for a lot of trains that it then turned out we could not operate. Nobody gets to Tacoma or Antonito by accident. We're not a, hey, this afternoon, let's go ride a train. We make a plan to come here. And so we were selling seats that then it turned out, well, we couldn't provide that service. So there's been a lot of running back to those people and trying to get them to either book for a train we were going to operate or take a refund or rebook for later. So that's been the most challenging part of it, but we anticipated that that would happen, and we did not feel that we could take a model where we simply said, you know, when we know what we're doing, we'll open up and start trying to sell tickets. And that's been challenging, and we appreciate the commitment of our clients to hang in there with us as we try to find our way through this. It clearly, from day to day to day, it's been a changing landscape in terms of what we're going to be allowed to do and when we're going to be allowed to do it.
And it's certainly not a normal year, huh?
No, and I think nimble is the key word for this year. Be nimble. Be able to make the changes when you have to make them. Deal with changing conditions. It's hard to foresee.
If I could add, we've learned from some past experiences that we've applied that knowledge to. For instance, last Christmas season, our parking lot was flooded and we had to cancel some trains. We had sold a lot of dinner train tickets in June. We couldn't do them. So we went through what John did. You get these people to move them to July and August.
Sure.
And we've kicked Day Out with Thomas down the road twice now. We still think we may be able to do it come September, but most of those people have, you know, it's been handled by Mattel and Ticket Web, and most of those people have not canceled. They're ready to come when the time comes, and we've set that money aside. We're not spending it on anything else. And if it finally just doesn't happen for whatever reason, then we'll make the refunds, or they'll make the refunds at that time. But you know, people have stuck with these things, even as, you know, we're open year round basically in Chattanooga. Some of our other things are more seasonal, and most people who booked have just moved their tickets down to a later date when we think we might restart something.
It is so hard to not touch those Thomas funds, though, isn't it?
Oh, I know. I got it in a separate bank account, separate bank. I never go there. It makes it easier.
Gotcha. You get codes and stuff from yourself.
That's
All
right. Yeah.
Well, we haven't really gotten to marketing much, but I think we've had a really great discussion with you guys. I want to just do a 1 minute on each of you as far as what kind of special marketing that you were doing, if anything. Now, Tim, you touched on a little bit on, I can start with you because you touched a little bit on, you're not really doing as much because there's not as much funds to put towards advertising. Obviously, that budget's out the window and people are still coming. Advice for other people as far as that goes, whether or not you wish you kind of would have put a little bit more into that fire or not?
Well, I think, you know, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. You know, we draw heavily out of the Atlanta area, and, you know, that's all, you know, you got to spend a lot of money down there to get even the first person to show up. So we just felt that that wasn't worth the effort to try and do that. People who want to come ride the train, because we're the only game in town in a sense, know where to look for us, know where to find us. You know, we're sending out, you know, email blasts to people who've ridden before. We you know, doing those kinds of things, and that's really about it. We're not doing anything else.
It's good to know. Rick, marketing, advertising?
We are mostly Facebook, social media. Our marketing person was a panelist here a few weeks ago. Refer to Mary Kay.
Yes.
We have a marketing budget that we can still spend that money because it's a city fund through lodging taxes. But I'm not sure how Mary Kay's doing on that, so I can't really answer. But it's been mostly social media and local radio.
Gotcha. John, briefly on marketing.
What I've learned, our audience, again, mostly, you know, silver foxes or gray bears or whatever you want to call them. And so a lot of our marketing in the past has been print, stuff that has long lead times. Once COVID hit, we certainly discovered, oh my Lord, I wish we hadn't put so much money into print, because now we're advertising something we're not actually able to sell.
Yes.
We pulled back as much of that as we could. Our focus is social media and digital advertising. The stuff that we can, again, get quick response times on, trying to stay nimble with that stuff. We're using a lot of Facebook and Instagram to try to keep the awareness and interest level up in the railroad so that they can tell what is going on. Now, we did sell a lot of the Victorian Iron Horse and other events for this 50th anniversary year. And fortunately, with our customer base, they largely said, you know what, I'm coming whenever you do it, hold on to my money. And
That's
so
good.
we're very grateful for that. And I know this isn't supposed to be a plug, but I do kind of want to put in a plug for DTS, because with all of the changing stuff, they have been very helpful in allowing us to do things that are somewhat different than we did them in previous years. Different reports that we need, and being more nimble on how to handle online refund stuff and things of that nature. So
Thank you,
I
John.
guess that's mostly what I can say on the marketing side, and a little plug for there. But
Well, Mike has been a huge help, I think, to us all, and I guess dynamically taking care of us with lots of great solutions. There we go.
Enough, stop.
All right. Our distinguished panelists, I really want to thank you guys. We're up against the local news here on our network, our train network here. So we're gonna have to wrap up here. But I do want to wish you guys the best, and best recovery summer and getting things ready. Stay safe on your railroads. Huge thanks to Rick Burchett, Tim Andrews, and John Bush. I'm Josh in Duluth, Minnesota. Turning it back over to Mike.
I too want to thank Tim, Rick, and John for joining us today. We hope that you found this helpful and would like to encourage your feedback. Our next webinar right now, we're scheduling for or targeting the last Thursday in July, which would be July 30th. There's 5 Thursdays in July, where we'll be continuing the conversation. We'll be getting out an invitation shortly, so please watch your email. And please give us feedback if you think we should be doing it this differently or at different times. We're just trying to learn. We want to continue doing this, and we want to be effective for everybody. So please, send an email to me to let me know, and we'll figure out what's best. Feel free to share the invitation with other people that you think might be able to benefit from our conversation. Let's all stay safe and stay connected. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.